Hey, welcome to the Nursing Dose with your host, Dr. Farah Laurent. Today, I'm going to talk to you about 5 unconventional interview tips for new nurses. That's right, 5 tips for all you nurses out there, whether you're a nursing student or a new graduate nurse, that will help you stand out during the interview process. And this is not what you will typically think of. So, again, for those who don't know me, I've been a nurse for over 20 years. I help new graduate nurses in the New York and California area land their dream role in less than 90 days, making up to 175K. I've been doing this for the last 4 years, and I just created a digital course called From New Nurse to Dream Role, and it's going to be available next week. If you want early access to this, please let me know. Regular price is going to be $12.97. However, if you get it now, it's only going to be $4.97. So if you want access to that discount link, please message me now, or you can go to my email, farlaurent, the number 1 at gmail.com. Okay, so I'll show all those links and information later, but let's get into this juicy interview tips that I want to share with you. Okay. So, how do I know all this? Because I've been on multiple interviews myself over the last 20 years where I actually landed an emergency department position as a new graduate nurse. That's right. This was 20 years ago in Canada. Despite my clinical instructor telling me that I would never be an emergency nurse, I still landed the emergency job as a nursing student before I even took my boards in Canada. So, over the years, like I said, I've had multiple interviews. I've been a travel nurse, I was an educator, went into some leadership positions where I actually interviewed new nurses and also educators, was involved in interview panels. And like I said, I've collected interview questions over the years. And now, as a nurse career coach, this is why I'm now sharing all this information and this value so that you guys don't have to waste any time and to not settle just for any job, but actually get what you really want, which is your dream role. Okay. So let's get into it. And if you happen to be watching, let me know where you're watching from, what city, what country. Drop any comments or questions that you may have. Even if you're watching the replay, I'll go back and look at it. Okay. So are you guys ready? Put ready in the chat if you're ready. Let's get into it. So these 5 tips that I'm going to share with you are rooted in these 5 pillars. And I call it the 5 C's of interviewing. Okay. And this is one of my frameworks that I've developed. The 5C framework. So number 1 framework of this pillar is confidence. The most confident candidate will typically get the position. I don't care if you have a high GPA on paper, you were the valedictorian, whatever the case is. If you are not confident in the interview, you're not getting hired. Okay, period. That's it. Confidence is the first C. Number 2, charisma. You need to be able to connect in the interview. You need to connect with people. Nurses, that's what we do all day, every day, is talk to people. And if you're able to connect with the interviewer, that's going to translate of what type of nurse you're going to be, because they want you to be able to connect with people as part of that customer experience, patient experience, as we call it in healthcare. So you need to have that charisma, that enthusiasm when you're in the interview. Okay. I don't care if you're introverted, extroverted, you got to bring the charisma. Okay. So that's C number 2. Then clarity. You need to be clear on what it is you want. You need to be clear about your strengths, your skills, and clear in your communication. And we're going to get into that in just a moment. And then competence. The reason you're being interviewed is because they see that you're qualified. But when you're in the interview, you need to demonstrate that competence, right? So you need to have some stories, some receipts, past experiences that prove that you can fit this job description of whatever you're applying to. And then lastly is communication, which is the pillar of communication, um, which is the most important thing in your interview. If you can't articulate what it is that you do as a nurse, you can't articulate your past experiences, strengths, and skills, it's going to be very difficult for you to get the job offer. So those are the 5 pillars, the 5 C's. Okay, so here goes tip number 1. Tip number 1 is you need to create a confidence file. All right, I call it a brag folder. Okay, so when I work with my nurse clients, I tell them that they physically need to create a brag folder. Okay, and in that folder, there's multiple things in there: certifications, recommendations letters, a bunch of things. And I break this down in the course, right? You need to have something physical that you can give them that proves your competence, everything that you've done, right? So certifications, all that stuff should be in your physical brag folder. That's number 1. That's going to help you stand out from everybody else, because I bet you 100% most candidates are not coming in with a brag folder. Okay. Then you need an actual confidence file folder of all your stories, basically experience stories. And these are the tell me a time stories, right? Tell me a time when you went above and beyond. Tell me a time when you took care of a critical patient and what you did in that emergency. How do you collaborate with the team? Tell me a time when you did this. That is the confidence folder. If you don't have a structured set of stories that you're going to tell, it's going to be very difficult for you to prove your competence, right? So need to work on those stories so you could package it up in your confidence folder, which is mentally, you're going to be able to articulate these stories. Storytelling is so important during interviews because it's what makes you memorable. You want to be unforgettable. You don't want to be just another candidate, right? So again, to review, number 1 is create a confidence folder, aka a brag folder, a physical folder that you can give them, and then have a file of stories that you're going to be able to talk about in your interview. Okay. Of course, my phone rings. So that's number 1. Number 2, I would say you need to be able to master the power of the pause. Okay. So what do I mean by that? During an interview, you have to be very focused on how you communicate. Sometimes they might throw a question at you that you may not know how to answer, or you're too quick to want to answer it and you're not collecting your thoughts enough, right? So, in order for you to have poise and clarity and that confidence, sometimes taking a pause, and this could be a 2 to 3 second pause, and then answering the question is going to demonstrate that you are very confident in your answers. Okay, so don't be afraid to take a pause. So if they ask a question, you can say, hey, that's a great question. I just need a moment to think about it. Or you don't even say that. Just pause for 2 to 3 seconds, collect your thoughts, and then answer. Right? Don't be so quick to answer and then you're not really sure what you're saying. Take a moment and pause. Okay? Because there is power in the pause. It demonstrates confidence. So if you think of a lot of popular world-class leaders or really great speakers, they take a moment to pause, particularly before expressing a really important story or a very important point. They may pause, right? Or after an important story or point, because they want the receiver to be able to process the information, right? So I'm someone who naturally speaks quickly. And also new graduate nurses, new nurses that are watching, you know, humans, when we're nervous, we have a tendency to speak a lot faster. So I would say try to slow down your speech and be intentional about your tone, your pace, um, and the power of the pause. I think is very important. All right. Number 3, what I will say is teach them something. Okay, teach something during your interview. This is something that I just recently thought about, right? They want to know that as a nurse, right? Most nurses were educators, even if you're not titled per se educator, but as nurses, one of our biggest roles is to educate, right? So you're educating your patients, family members, other nurses, whatever the case is. So if you are able to educate during the interview and teach something, it's going to make you look like a competent expert, right? And again, yes, I know novice to expert, Patricia Benner, whatever, but you know what I mean. In terms of getting this position, you are competent enough. You pass your NCLEX, okay? So it can go something like this. You want to display this expertise in whatever area that you want to go into. So let's say, let's pick critical care, for example, or the emergency department. You can say, during my rotation in the ICU at so and so hospital, I learned the importance of X and how it improves X, like patient experience or whatever the case is, right? So you can say something like that. You could talk about maybe sepsis or something particularly that you learned. However, I would highly suggest that you keep it, I call it the 3 real big pillars in nursing, which is safety, quality, and patient experience. So if you've learned something, let's say in quality or patient experience, I would talk about that, of whatever your experience or your rotation was, particularly as it relates to the job. So let's say you're applying for an L&D position, labor and delivery, and you learn specifically something in labor and delivery, you might want to use this time to express what you learned, right? Extremely important. So that's number 4. And then, number 3. Number 4, I will say focus on energy and not so much the words. Okay. So again, focus on the energy and not really the words too much. So think about these interviewers. They're interviewing multiple people a day or a week. So if you're coming into the interview and you're more focused on memorizing and you have something scripted, it's going to sound fake. It's not going to sound authentic, right? Also, the delivery of your words and the energy is what's important, because people will pay more attention when there's more energy, more charisma, more enthusiasm, more passion, right? You can't fake that. So that's what I talk about when I'm talking about um, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about energy. Don't focus so much on the words or using fancy words. Just speak from the heart and be truthful and transparent. And that's where you're going to build trust. Okay. And then that leads me to the last point, is you need to be a connector, right? You need to be able to connect with the person that you're interviewing with. Okay. Connect with them in a way where you're having a conversation and it's not just question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. Before the interview is going to be very important. So let's say you're at a hospital setting, you're waiting to be interviewed, and they call your name to walk up to go to whatever room or conference room that they're interviewing you in, right? It's so important to start connecting with that person right away and just be authentic, right? So ask them how their day was. How's it going? Some people don't like to engage in small talk. However, you got to play the game and just be yourself, right? Like they're a person, just talk to them. How's it going? Whatever it is. Because if you're able to connect like that, they're going to be like, okay, so this nurse is going to be a great communicator, a great team player, um, someone that we want on the team that's going to create a healthy work environment, that's going to be able to adapt to any environment they're in and can start a conversation with just about anybody, right? So, as a nurse, it's so important to quickly establish rapport with our patients and our families. And if you can do that in the interview and connect with the interviewer, something as simple as even being authentic and being like, hey, I love your glasses. Like, where'd you get your glasses? Or I love your earrings, or whatever the case is. You're now making it less formal and more conversational, because that's what you want to do. You want to have them see you as a part of the team. Okay. So let me know if these were helpful. I know I shared with them. I shared this with you quite quickly, but let's get into some questions or comments if you have any. And let me check out the comments and see who's here and what are the people saying. Okay. All right. So we have Darlene Bell. What's up, Darlene? So much power in the pause. Yes. Thank you so much for joining. Darlene Bell is a good friend of mine, and she has the Joy Reset workshop. So definitely check her out. She also has a newsletter for nurses. She talks a lot about joy in workplace, just wellness and things like that. So shout out to her. And then we have my other good friend, Melba Jameson, who is part of the FNA, the Florida Nurses Association. And she also has announced her candidacy. So definitely vote for Melba for the FNA, Florida Nurses Association. And they were both at my conference, Nurses Making Money Moves. And I know they're going to be at the next one too, right? Nurses Making Business Moves 2026 in Tampa. So let me know if you're watching. If you have any specific questions about interviews, maybe share some tips in the comments about how you did really well in an interview, and any tips that you might have for all my nursing students and new graduate nurses out there. There's so many nurses right now that are passing their NCLEX, so shout out to them. Congrats. Those who are passing their NCLEX, welcome to the profession. And if you're new to this podcast and this show, please subscribe on YouTube, The Nursing Dose with Farah. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can also subscribe to my I can't even talk. Subscribe to my newsletter. I have 2 newsletters on LinkedIn, so you definitely check those out. I have Nurses Making Money Moves newsletter, and then the Bold New Nurse. I share a lot of tips in there about careers, interviews, how to negotiate your salary, all types of things. Okay. And then I also have updates about different events that I'm hosting and things like that. So I'll be hosting another free Zoom session. I haven't decided when, but I'll probably do a Zoom session. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe the end of July. If you're a nursing student and new grad and you would be interested in a free Zoom session, please put free Zoom session in the comments. I did this, I believe it was sometime last week, where I shared different tips for interviews for new graduate nurses. And I had a bunch of nurses from all over the US who joined. I also have a free training. So if you're interested in that free training, put free training in the comments. If you are a senior nursing student or new grad looking for a residency program or looking to get into a specific specialty and you're not getting interviewed, you can't even get to the interview stage and you don't understand, you're frustrated and you're like, what is going on? This free training breaks down why you are not getting hired and what to do about it. Okay. And of course, the most important thing that I talked about at the beginning of this live is I developed an actual course, a self-paced course for all the new graduate nurses out there. And it's called New Nurse to Dream Role. And if you're interested in early access to get this course, please put early access in the comments or DM me, direct message me early access, right? And the course is called New Nurse to Dream Role. And it's going to be available sometime next week. But if you want early access and you want the discounted link, right? I talked about this. So the regular price of the course is going to be $12.97, which is already a steal, right? But you can get it right now for $497. That's less than $500, right? And think about the return on investment. Like I said, I help nurses make 100K up to 175K, right? So $500 is like nothing. You can make that in less than a week in your first job, right? So the return on investment of getting this course is nothing. And if you're not working, let's say for 3 to 6 months, and you're just sitting around applying, nothing's happening, you're not getting the job, let's just do some quick math, right? Let's say $100,000 is the salary that you could be potentially making as a new grad, right? I'm talking California, New York, Texas, a lot of places. That is the base salary for a new grad, about 100K, right? So for 6 months, if you don't have a job for 6 months, that is $50,000 that you are leaving on the table, right? That's a lot of money. So now 500, like less than $500, that's nothing. So that's how I like to kind of, break it down, because nursing school does not teach you how to be confident in the interviews. They don't teach you how to interview well, and they typically don't encourage you to go for what it is that you really want. So that's what I do. I break all that up. I disrupt all these old narratives that you have to start in med-surg. You do not. You can start where you want to start. And this is why I developed this course, New Nurse to Dream Role, because I had this issue as a new nurse myself. They kept telling me that I had to start in med-surg, but I wanted to start in the emergency department. And you can do it too. You don't have to listen to the negativity, to the nonsense. I don't know why they're telling nursing students that they have to start in med-surg or even start in the hospital. You don't have to start in the hospital if you don't want to, right? You can start as a community nurse. You can start in a clinic, outpatient, whatever it is, public health, I don't know. Whatever you want to do, it's possible. You just need the right strategy, the right frameworks. And guess who's going to give that to you? Me. In this course, nicely packaged up, a self-paced course, right? And after this course, you will get your dream role. Okay? I talk about LinkedIn strategies in there. How LinkedIn is like the new resume. It's actually better than your resume. Networking. I talk about how to network as a nursing student so you can position yourself for success. Because guess what? Your clinicals, you could be in a clinical rotation. That is your undercover interview. You don't realize it as a nursing student, but going to these rotations, you need to be developing relationships with the charge nurses, the nurse managers, getting their numbers, getting their emails, and staying in touch, getting recommendations, because guess what? You could eventually end up on that unit if you play your cards right, if you connect well. Okay, so talk to me, people. Like, talk to me here. Okay. You are absolutely right. Making small talk with the interviewer makes you feel less anxious and the conversation flows freely. Yes. Thank you, Melba, for that. Darlene says, same, told me I had to start in med-surg. And I said, no, ma'am. Yeah, like let's normalize letting nursing students and new grads go where they want to be. Another myth, I have about 5 minutes and I'm going to drop off. Another myth that I have to debunk is that nursing students think that they cannot apply to jobs as a nursing student. You can. Okay. I've helped many nurses land job offers 3 months before they even graduate. Okay. I talked about it the other day. I helped a nurse in St. Louis get a job in psychiatry, and she landed that job offer 3 months before graduation. Okay. I did it myself. Like I said, I got my ER position before I even graduated and before I even took my boards in Canada. So don't think you have to wait to pass your NCLEX. Don't think that you need to graduate and go to your pinning ceremony before you can apply for these positions, right? Because realistically, it could take 3 months to 6 months before you go through this job search process, right? Think about it, especially near the holidays. You want to apply way in advance because when holidays come around and things like that, recruiters are busy, they might take time off, vacations, hiring managers are taking time off. So you need to apply early and you need to apply on day one. So I know I'm dropping a lot of hints, a lot of tips, gems, and this is what you will find in my course, From New Nurse to Dream Role. Okay, because they don't teach you this in nursing school. So this is why I'm so passionate about helping you as new nurses get to where you want to be. Because if you get to where you want to be, you're going to likely stay there, right? And it's helping with retention. So it's super important. And like Melba says, yes, networking is very important because I will tell you, once you start networking virtually, like online and also in person, when people get to know you, they trust you. And let's say you made some really good connections with hiring managers as a student when you were on their clinical rotation. Guess what? Excuse me, when they get to the interview process, they're going to remember you. They're going to remember the conversations you've had, and you'll be more likely to get the job because they trust you. Because when you're on your clinical rotation, you're going to excel and go above and beyond so that they see your work ethic and the type of person you are so that they want to hire you. Okay. And then another thing is you get to see the organization. You get to see the floor, the unit, the hospital, the organization, wherever you get placed at. And if you really like it, it's important because healthy work environments are sometimes difficult to find. And if you connect well with the leadership team, then those are all positive things. Okay. I also have in my training a bunch of bonus videos and resources of red flags of organizations that you should avoid. So, like I said, if you're interested in getting early access to my New Grad to Dream Role course, DM me early access. You can also put early access here in the comments. Make sure that we're connected. And then look out for the free training. If you do want the free training, just message me free training. Okay. I hope this was helpful. I'm also going to go live tomorrow, I believe, and later this week. Any questions, comments, drop them in. Let me know if this was valuable. And thank you so much, Melba and Darlene, for showing up. I appreciate it. And also, Darlene threw in a link for her next workshop, which is 7/24. So definitely look in the comments for her link to join her workshop. I highly recommend. And then check out Melba at the Florida Nurses Association. Connect with both of them. So like I said, that's it for me today. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time. Please subscribe to The Nursing Goes with Farah on YouTube and subscribe to the newsletters. Check out my new course coming out next week. Please share this and repost it. Share it with your friends.